Welcome to Fireside Gaming. I'm Billum, and this week we're continuing our playthrough of the Metroid series with Super Metroid, which is the third installment in the series. It even says so in the opening, but heck if I know the last time somebody called it Metroid 3. Just to play catch-up real quick, I've already covered the first and second games in the series. That saw me reviewing Metroid Zero Mission, as well as AM2R in place of Metroid 2 or Samus Returns. Links to those reviews are in the corner. Also, if you can't tell, I'm currently getting over a cold, so I apologize for the stuffy voice. Super Metroid isn't a game I played back when it first came out. In fact, I didn't get around to playing it until after Fusion. At least, I think that's how it went. My memory on which was my first 2D Metroid game is a bit fuzzy. Also, I didn't play it on original hardware either. Yeah, I was deep into emulation back in my early teens, and while I know it's got a divisive reputation, I'm not against it. I don't think people should be pirating brand new games, but it doesn't bother me for people to play older games that way. That's actually how I record footage for most of the games I review. And to be fair, emulation resulted in me finding many of my favorite games and also turned me into a paying customer. So in that regard, I really think it can be a good thing. But we're not here for a deep discussion about the morals of emulation. We want to talk about Super Metroid. My first time playing through Super Metroid was right around the same time I first experienced Fusion, and there's no denying I got hit with a bit of whiplash jumping between the two so soon. You likely already know this, but Super Metroid is the shining example of freedom while exploring in a Metroid game. On the flip side of that, Fusion offers a much more linear experience that we'll talk about later. Even so, I did adjust to the changes, and that's probably due to my experience with Metroid Prime, which also offers a bit of freedom to players exploring its world. What I found in Super Metroid was a much lonelier game than what I was expecting, and it really went all out on the atmosphere. Wandering around the alien world of Planet Zebes without any guidance whatsoever was a thrilling experience for young me. And that still holds true to this day, even if the experience isn't quite the same. See, Super Metroid is more like returning to an old friend than any other game in the series. There are intricacies and details about it that you just never quite forget. For example, even though it's been about 5 years since I last played through the game, I had no problem remembering all the tricks I've previously used to get ahead faster. That includes picking up the spacer and wave beams early with wall jumping. While it may not be intended, some of the most fun I have in Super Metroid comes from figuring out ways to get items and upgrades early. That's thanks to the Shine Spark, which made its debut in this game. Shine Sparking requires players to first acquire the speed booster and then gain speed while running. Then they simply have to crouch down to store energy and jump in a direction. This will send Samus rocketing off, and she won't stop until she hits a part of the environment. This ability drains her health, but it also opens up secret paths that players wouldn't be able to take advantage of otherwise. It's a powerful ability that will kill just about any enemy it comes into contact with, and to top it off, it just looks so dang cool. I love the after images Samus sends out after colliding with an object while Shine Sparking. That only happens in Super Metroid, but I wish other games would have kept it. Of course, I didn't know anything about sequence breaking, which is what it's called when you do certain events out of order, when I first played Super Metroid. I just played the game, and sometimes I wish I could recapture that feeling. Exploring the world for the first time is something I'll never do again, and I remember the game too well to just wait a few years to try to get that feeling back. It's strange just how much Super Metroid sticks in my mind. I've played through it 4 or 5 times in the last 20 years, but it's not one where I forget the details. Either way, we should probably talk about why we're back on Zebes again. Spoilers are on the way. Super Metroid picks up right after Metroid 2. Samus takes the baby Metroid from that game to a Federation research station and leaves it with scientists to examine. She takes off in her gunship, but doesn't make it far before an emergency signal from that exact station is sent to her. Samus speeds back to the station only to find it littered with the dead bodies of its inhabitants. The Federation's favorite bounty hunter eventually finds the baby Metroid, but it's in the process of being stolen by Ridley, who's back after his apparent death in Zero Mission. Samus is unable to stop him, but does track him back to Zebes. This is a fun moment for players that have been sticking with the Metroid series since its start, as it has Samus revisiting the area where she beat Mother Brain at the end of the first game. While we don't know exactly what's happening, we do find golden statues of 4 creatures. One of these is Ridley, and the other is Kraid, another member of the space pirates that Samus killed in Zero Mission. So it's safe to assume that space pirate shenanigans are happening again. After this, there's not much in the way of story for players to keep an eye out for. Sure, there's environmental storytelling, such as the crashed ship that Fantoon inhabits, as well as other bits and pieces for players to piece together, but nothing that outright explains what's happening to the player. And that's how I prefer it. Super Metroid benefits from this type of minimalistic storytelling as it lets the player insert their own feelings into the game. A perfect example of this comes from the baby Metroid at the end of the game. It went through a bit of a growth spurt and attacked Samus, almost killing her. Just before doing so, the baby Metroid recognizes her and stops draining her life energy. That's a sweet moment of storytelling that I love, and it gets even better when players progress to the battle with Mother Brain. Just like in Zero Mission, Samus has to shatter the barrier around Mother Brain with missiles before she can kill the evil biocomputer. The big difference this time around is Mother Brain doesn't die from a few missiles to the face. Instead, a second phase to the battle kicks off that has players taking on Mother Brain and her weirdly chicken-looking body. After players do enough damage to Mother Brain, she'll launch a Hyper Beam attack on Samus that will eventually drain her of almost all her energy. When it looks like Samus is about to die, the baby Metroid swoops in and latches onto Mother Brain's brain. It drains the energy from the monster, leaving it gray and motionless. The baby Metroid then starts to give the stolen energy to Samus. But Mother Brain isn't done just yet. In what is no doubt one of the tensest moments in the game, players watch as purple breath starts to leak from Mother Brain's mouth. She's reawakening and players can't stop her. No matter how much you want to, you have to sit and watch as Mother Brain attacks the baby Metroid and it shields you with its own body. In one final attempt to stop the crazed AI, the Metroid flies at her, only to be killed. This moment hits hard. Dang hard. It elicits a righteous fury from the player as they want nothing more than to bring Mother Brain down. And luckily, they've got just the tool to do that. When the baby Metroid died, the energy from its body covered Samus, equipping her with the Hyper Beam. The same beam that Mother Brain used to defeat Samus is now in her possession, and she uses it. There is nothing more satisfying in Super Metroid than absolutely wrecking Mother Brain with the Hyper Beam. It's a perfect moment where the tables are turned, and it's no longer Samus facing down a massive monster more powerful than her, but is instead Mother Brain being slapped around by the best dang bounty hunter in the galaxy. There are only a few moments in video games that make a player feel as powerful as this one. Giving them the Hyper Beam and letting them unleash all of their rage against Mother Brain is better than any cutscene or QuickTime event, because it's the own player's feelings and actions on display. With Mother Brain nothing more than a pile of dust, the self-destruct sequence for the Space Pirate facility activates, and Samus has just a few minutes to make it back to her ship and get off the planet before it explodes. Of course, she makes it with time to spare, and might even bring some friends along. And with that, Super Metroid is complete. You don't likely need me to tell you that Super Metroid still holds up well to this day, but I will anyway. The game has aged incredibly well, even if it has a few moments of clunk compared to other games in the series. Among that is having to press select to switch through missiles, super missiles, power bombs, the grapple beam, and the X-ray visor. It can be a bit annoying to do when exploring, but at least it doesn't matter much for boss fights. And those, you can just leave super missiles on and go to town. And if you run out of those, just pummel the boss with normal missiles. Seriously, that's the secret to beating just about every boss in the game. Except for Dragon. I can't remember the last time I actually fought this boss. Once you know about killing it with the electric current through the grapple beam, there's no going back. It's just such a neat secret to not make use of it. Another issue that some players might have with the game is Samus's movement. Samus overall feels much more sluggish in this game. She's heavier than in Zero Mission or Fusion, and has lots of float to her jump. The space jump also requires a bit more timing to use, and shine sparking is a little touchier as well. The space jump being finicky is the only one of these that really bother me, but I wanted to mention them all for potential new players checking out the game. While I'm making sure I've got my bases covered, I've got to point out the wonderful sprite art in Super Metroid. Rather than blast players with bright colors, Super Metroid offers a much more muted palette that lends to its somewhat creepy atmosphere. And you know what else helps make that atmosphere? The music. It comes as no surprise that Super Metroid is filled to the brim with amazing tunes. My personal favorite is Lower Norfair, but I enjoy all of the music in the game. The rest of the audio is also great, with many of the enemies in Super Metroid sharing screams with classic kaiju from the Godzilla film series. It's a small thing that I didn't know until I read it on the wiki, but it's something I can definitely appreciate as a fan of the King of the Monsters. Overall, Super Metroid is an amazing game to go back and play even more than 25 years after its original release. Luckily, it's easy to do that with it being available on the Nintendo Switch via the online subscription. Personally, I prefer to own my games, so I have Super Metroid via the Wii U's Virtual Console, alongside Zero Mission, Fusion, and a plethora of other games. And while I love having the option of owning it digitally, I also have to ask, would it really be such a bad idea for Nintendo to put out a physical Metroid collection on Switch? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. It would be a great idea. Let's just hope Nintendo does it someday. Thank you for stopping by for my Super Metroid review. I'd appreciate any likes, comments, or subscriptions you feel fit to throw my way. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Billum256 if you want more of me for some reason. And as always, take it easy.